Is it time for the RotoWire Rundown? Do we have a special edition for the 106th PGA Championship? Not only am I, Keith Stewart, your host from Read the Line, joined by my usual partner in crime, Mr. Len Hochberg, senior golf writer over at RotoWire. We have Ryan Pohle, DFS product specialist over there at RotoWire. Ryan, how are you doing today? And welcome to the PGA Championship Rundown.
Yeah, hey Keith, I'm doing well. Good to be with you guys today.
And we have one more participant today, Ryan Andrade. He is the RotoWire Golf editor. So, I don't know. Len, is that your boss? Ryan, welcome to the show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. I've enjoyed listening to you guys do this show, so happy to be on.
Well, we love a little spontaneity on the rundown. So before we get into a little bit of Q&A about the golf course and our favorites and DFS names and betting and otherwise, I just want to get a first reaction from you guys. Second major championship of the year, right? Rory's coming off 2 wins. Brooks coming off 1 win. Scottie's coming off 4 wins, a green jacket in 5 starts, right? What are you guys thinking coming in? I'm going to start with you, Ryan Pohle. What are you thinking? What's one thought you're coming in for that you're most excited about?
I think Koepka is a big storyline this week. I know, obviously people are really interested in Scottie and, coming off the baby being born last week. But, Koepka was a, letdown at the Masters. But this time he comes in, fresh off a LIV victory. And, we know he dominates the PGA Championship. So I'm really eager to see if he works his way into contention right away this week.
Well, there's no doubt he dominates this championship. He's got 3 of them already, and he's the defending champion. But Len Hochberg, one quick thought from you about the PGA Championship as we head into this week.
Well, I think that just the fact that Rory won recently and Brooks Koepka won recently makes the storylines across the board a lot spicier. If they would have come in with regular play, middle of the road play, it would have been Scottie. But I think now that we have these 2 guys, 2 more heavyweights coming in on form, I think it just adds so much more excitement and drama and interest into things. So it's just really dovetailing very nicely right now.
All right. I love that lead in. Hey, Ryan Andrade, what do you think heading into this week here at Valhalla?
Yeah, it's a great venue. It's always had a lot of exciting PGA championships. Obviously, it feels like every 6 months, right, we get this sort of new big 3 or however you want to frame it. And obviously now we got that with Scottie winning 4 out of 5. We got Rory coming into the PGA winning, his last 2 starts. Same thing that happened in 2014, the last time he won a major. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. You got, Brooks obviously coming in. And then going under the radar completely for pretty valid reasons is Jordan Spieth, who's trying to complete the career Grand Slam this week. So, he's steadily approaching 100-1, which is just like, you never would have thought that back when he won his last one back in 2017 at the Open Championship. So interested to see how that wrist holds up for Spieth and if he can just sort of get in contention somehow, some way. It would definitely spice things up on the weekend for sure.
Well, as we go through the favorites and the names and who we all like this week, I think it's interesting. That's probably the only way you could have slid in a Spieth reference was right there. But we got to go back 1 week. Quail Hollow Club, the Wells Fargo Championship. I was down in Charlotte last week for the rundown. It was Len and I. Len, take us back a week. Why was Quail Hollow Club such a perfect preview for this week at Valhalla? And give us a little recap of what went down in Charlotte.
Yeah, well, the courses are very similar. I think we're going to see smaller greens this week, but we talked last week how we normally or don't often see the week before a major have a course comparable to the major. And I don't know, I don't think they necessarily planned it this way. It just happened that way. But because of, long, hard course, kind of low on the, the birdie meter there, except for 8 holes if you're Rory McIlroy. There's just a lot of comparable factors where the proverbial every club in the bag, Quail Hollow, one of the big beasts annually, Valhalla this year, both around 7,600 yards. And Rory, well, there's very few things in golf. I mean, there's been a lot of talk. A lot of it justified. Over the last couple of years, golf is just not as great as it used to be. There's a lot of this, there's a lot of that. We don't have to get into all of that. But when Rory McIlroy is at the top of his game, I think everyone thinks and everyone knows that golf is more interesting. So it was just fantastic to see, the old who's best when they're playing their best. Well, Rory put in a very strong vote for himself when he's at his best. And, in his booming 350-yard drives will play very well this week.
Well, you know what? There's a lot of Rory talk coming into this. He's won twice. It's the same sort of setup and lead in as he did in 2014. He is the defending Valhalla PGA champion. Now, Ryan Poole, is Rory the number one story for you this week? Is it Scottie with the baby? What leads your headline heading into the PGA Championship? Because, there's 4 or 5 different storylines to choose from. I'm interested in what you think or what you're most focused on as you start to build out your lineups.
Yeah, I kind of talked about Koepka, a couple of minutes ago. Scottie just deserves a lot of the attention, right? Like, he's the most dominant figure we've seen in golf since Tiger. And, everybody's wondering how he's going to perform having 3 weeks off. The last time he had 3 weeks off, he went and won the Arnold Palmer Invitational. So, he's rustier than the other guys in the field that, played the signature event last week. I think had the baby been born, like Sunday, this is maybe a different story. But, if you listen to the interview that Scottie had with Todd Lewis yesterday, he was on site playing a practice round. He seems really prepared. He seems to be downplaying it all. And, who am I to question that? I expect Scottie to be in great form. He's given us no reason to think that he's not going to show up and play really well.
All right. Now, Ryan Andrade, along those lines, a lot of talk there about Scottie. What did you think about the news of the baby just not even being really released officially until he got here on the property? It's almost like there was this kind of mystery around whether or not he was still going to play or not. Do you think that was a little bit of gamesmanship, or do you think that's just, Scottie not, just being a little bit more of a recluse and very personal with his family and what goes on in his social life? I don't know. I see both sides of it. I'm interested what your opinion is on that.
Yeah, I think Scottie's just a very, private person and wants to keep that all close to the vest. I think, God, it took Meredith forever, right, to just pop that baby out. We were back at the Masters like a month ago saying, like, is he going to withdraw? Because, she's, pregnant, and here we are almost at PGA Championship week, and she still hadn't gotten it out. So happy that all got resolved. Happy he got, some well-deserved time out after that incredible stretch of golf he had and got to be home. So I think, I think he's ready at this point just to put the blinders on, focus on golf, and, try to show that, that you got all these other big hitters in here, but you're still going to have to go through me. So.
All right, Ryan Poole, let's jump to Jon Rahm for a minute. Last year at this time, he had just won the green jacket. He had won 4 times, and he was coming in as one of the betting favorites for this championship. He was 8-1 on the betting board. And now all of a sudden, Jon Rahm isn't even part of the big 3 conversation. What are your expectations for Jon Rahm this week?
Yeah, Rahm's kind of a forgotten man, which is, it's crazy how quickly things can turn in that regard. In 7 live starts this year, he's finished in the top 10 in all 7. What does that exactly mean? It's hard to exactly quantify it. I think it means he's still playing good golf. I think it's a little concerning he hasn't won. You would just think someone of his level, could have gone in there and won a couple of times already, but, he has been in contention a lot. I don't necessarily expect him to be in contention. He wasn't at the Masters. He doesn't feel like he's, playing at that level we saw when he won the Masters a year ago. I wouldn't be surprised if it's another makes cut, but isn't really a serious contender over the weekend.
All right, one more question I've got for you, Ryan Andrade. Xander Schauffele, he comes into PGA Week. He has 8 top 10s this season. He's arguably been, even strokes gained, he's been competitive with Scottie. I'm not going to say he's as good as him, but he's got to be right there next to him from a comparative analysis point of view, right? Is 8 top 10s this season a good reason to back him this week, or is that actually a bad reason to back him this week?
I mean, form is always good, right? I think my thing with Xander is, you look at all the metrics and stuff, and it's just like, I mean, he's number 2 on Data Golf. I mean, it's just, you look down the list, there's no weaknesses. Like, everything in his game has just been fantastic. Unfortunately, we're sitting here and, somehow, some way, this man hasn't won since the Scottish Open in 2022, which is just crazy, hard to believe. I am a little bit concerned about Xander this week just because I feel like the way things ended at Quail Hollow, he led the entire week. Everybody knows that, and he hears that, where it's like, you haven't, you don't win. You don't win enough. You're this great of a player, but you don't win enough. And he gets the front seat to watch Rory McIlroy just put on an absolute show and just drive right by him. So, I'll be interested to see how he starts this week. I think Thursday and Friday will be important to just sort of flush everything that happened last week. But I mean, if you're just going by numbers and stuff, I mean, this is a perfect fit for a guy like Schauffele.
Well, when I published the player rankings for the entire field for Golf Digest, I was asked why I put Xander at 5th. And I said, well, quite frankly, because that's probably where he's going to finish this week. And, everyone got a good chuckle out of that. Hey, Len, let's talk about the golf course for a second. Valhalla, Jack Nicklaus design, 1986. This is our 4th edition of the PGA Championship here. It started way back in 1996 with Mark Brooks winning. Since that time, we've lost a stroke to par. That was a par 72. It also was for Tiger in 2000. Now it's a par 71. And we've gained over 460-something yards, right? Start to break down this venue and why Valhalla is so special. And at this unique time in the game with Liv and the new big 3 coming together, why this is going to be a fantastic venue for this, awesome championship.
Well, everyone talks about, rightfully so these days, about getting all the top guys together. And we have that here. Even Taylor Gooch, is here this week. So there's no asterisk this week, anybody. And you want that in a major championship. You want all the best guys there. You want a course that forces the best guys to play their best or identifies the best golfer. And this is the proverbial every club in the bag course, as it should be. It favors the longer hitters. You've got to hit it pretty darn straight. You're going to have long iron shots. They are incredibly tiny greens, just 5,000 square feet. So greens will be missed. That brings scrambling and chipping and all that sort of good stuff into play. And then you got to make putts, because I read that the stimp meter is running at about 13 or so. I mean, a lot of this might change a little bit with the weather and the rain and stuff, but they're trying to set up the course, and there's 4 inches of rough, so don't miss the fairway. So it really requires everything in the bag, and golfers will have to choose. They may have to take a little bit off a distance to get something in the fairway, because that will be an advantage. To get an extra 20 yards or something and be in the rough doesn't sound optimum. So really, it just requires everything it requires you to do everything well, or at least decently. And that's really all you can ask in a major championship. And that's what you want in a major championship. And we should see a lot of the best guys on the leaderboard on Sunday, because they're the best guys.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more with that analysis. And I don't want to be redundant. So I want to touch on the weather for a minute, because I am here at Valhalla. I'm here in the media center as we do this show. And it's already poured this morning. They already cleared the golf course. They've already had problems with the player interviews and all that's going on. They had the fans removed because there is just a ton of water coming through. Since the start of May, they've had 2.4 inches of rain in this region, and they expect at least another almost 2 inches this week throughout the course of the 4 rounds, and of course today as well. The golfers are back out on the golf course for their practice rounds. The practice tee is full. They're taking full advantage. They resume the interviews. As we're having this conversation right now, Tiger Woods is in the interview room telling everyone about why he's going to probably win this week, and like he did back in 2000. So unfortunately, I think the weather is going to play more of a role than anyone thinks, but without trying to state the obvious and say it's going to be a long, soft golf course and we need to have the super bombers be ready to go. I think one thing at Valhalla that gets overlooked, and that is the putting. When you go back to that 2014 leaderboard, it was the same conditions. It was super soft. You watch that final round with Rory on YouTube, and you see the ball hit off the tee, and it just stays right in its spot. There's no roll at this place. Now, we've changed the agronomy, and we know that will help. Bent grass greens, and we have zoysia grass fairways. So zoysia is much better in these wet conditions, humid conditions that we find here in Kentucky most of the time. So I'm excited to see how basically these guys can ball strike their way around this place, but when scoring happens on the greens, 7 of the guys in the top 10 in 2014 finished in the top 12 in strokes gained putting that year. So we always think about this 7,600 yards, but don't lose sight of the last yard or two when you guys are starting to put together your betting boards. So before we head into the names, Len, any adjustments that you're making if all of that weather prediction does come true? Is there something that you might favor more or less based upon the softness?
Yeah, I've really grappled with this because long iron play, it's really the hallmark. If you're going to pick one thing, last week, this week, 175 to 200, maybe a little bit more than 200. And there are so many of those guys who I like, and so many of those guys who do that, have that skill set, but they're all terrible putters. And so really grappling with how many of these guys, and and I'm talking about the Corey Connors and the Keegan Bradleys and some of those guys along, and Chris Kirk is a guy who I think fits that bill. And so really struggling, really like those guys for this. But their upside seemingly would be limited by the inability to putt most weeks. So that's my challenge. I don't know what adjustments I can make there because I can't get past long iron play in just about any conditions. You need to have that to be in the conversation this week.
Well, if Tiger ever taught us anything, it's long iron play is the way you separate from a field like this. And I mean, Scottie does it with tremendous aplomb. So there's no doubt that's one of many reasons why he's the favorite. So let's get into the names, guys. Let's start talking a little bit of DFS as you build out your cards. I'm going to go to you first, Ryan Poole, right? So give me 1 or 2 names, maybe even 3. But, who are you featuring this week in your lineups? Who are your core? Who are 2 of your core guys?
So I'm going to go to the mid-range first, and I'm looking at Tyrell Hatton at 8,200. I think this is just like way too cheap of a price for a guy that, is arguably a top 10, probably top 15 player in the world. Some guys, forget about him because he's gone to live, but he has played well on live. He's also played well at PGA Championship setups. He's got 4 top 15s at PGAs, including back-to-back top 15s. Augusta is a place he typically hasn't done well at, and he finished top 10 there this year. So he's coming off a top 5 in his last live start as well. I think there's a lot to like about Hatton this week. Digging into the 7K range, Steven Yeager at 7,100 just feels completely disrespectful. This is a guy that's elevated to be one of the better golfers on the PGA Tour this year. Finally won for the first time. He's finished T3 in a signature event. He drives the ball really far. He's 4th in driving distance this season. He's 20th in strokes gained tee to green this season. So I think there's a lot to like about Yeager this week.
All right, I like both those names. I think Well, I remember last year at Oak Hill, I had Terrell Hatton on my betting card. So he definitely fits Kerry Haig's setup here at any PGA championship. And Oak Hill is a great comp course for what we're seeing this year as far as the setup goes as I've walked around. Now, Ryan Andrade, how about you? A couple names that are the core plays in your DFS card.
Yeah, I mean, this is the best field in golf. There was a debate. There's a debate for a little while. The players, because you got the 20 PGA professionals, but now that the live guys can't play, TPC Sawgrass, this is the best field in golf. And like you look all the way down, and the sevens, the sixes, it's just filled with great value guys that I would pay a lot more for on a regular basis. So one of the guys, I mean, he's been a hallmark for me all year. Been on. He was 7,800 on DK, which I mean, been on the 7K range. Like I'll take that every time. He's coming up back-to-back top 4 finishes, top 25 strokes gained tee to green, total driving, greens and regulation, and also proximity in those key long iron areas that Lynn was talking about. Those are definitely ones to keep an eye on. And honestly, he's great for DFS because he'll make a bunch of mistakes, but he makes a ton of birdies and eagles. Like he's second in birdie average, so that's always good for DFS. Another guy that I really like this week is Keith Mitchell. He's 6,600 on DK. He is
all right.
Yeah. Whenever you talk about places that are there's a big emphasis on driving, Keith Mitchell has to be right up there. He's been 21st or better in strokes gained off the tee for the last 7 seasons. I mean, that's Rory McIlroy level. And this season, he's great on approach too. He's top 10 in strokes gained approach, greens and regulation, proximity. And he's made the last 3 cuts in the PGA. So this is a great spot, I think, for Keith Mitchell to have a good week.
He can't chip, he can't putt, but what can he do? He can drive it far and he can hit his irons well.
He's another one of those guys, Corey, like I mentioned, these guys that can really, get the ball on the green very quickly, but then they're not so quick to get off the green.
Yeah, he's cheap, and he's cheaper than some of them too. So I think he's got good value. And hey, it's small targets, but it's wet, and I think the scores will be a little bit better than we think, and I think there's going to be a lot of birdie opportunities for guys that are locked in with their ball striking.
Well, if there's all sorts of scoring opportunities, Len Hochberg, who are you taking as your 2 kind of core plays on the DFS board?
Well, the interesting phenomenon of late with Scottie Scheffler doing what Scottie Scheffler's doing, he's up in the 13,000s. That makes it very difficult to field a really strong lineup with 5 other guys. You're only averaging about $7,300, $7,400 for the other guys. You can sort of get something there, but your margin for error is much slimmer there. So I think you can build a lineup with a bunch of 9,000s. I think, the winner will come maybe from 10 or 15 deep, are subjective, who's the best golfers in the world. And I think there are guys in the 9,000s who can do really well. We haven't mentioned Max Homa yet. And Max Homa plays really well at Quail Hollow. He played well at Quail Hollow last week. He's also turned, and Valhalla has some similarities, as we talked about. And he's also turned a corner in majors. One of the most perplexing things was his inability to play well in majors. Well, I don't know. I want to say he solved that, but he was 10th at the Open Championship last year. He just tied for 3rd at Augusta. And I'm sure a lot of the mental what's going on is out of his head, and he feels a lot better. Bryson DeChambeau, Ryan mentioned that Tyrrell Hatton had not played well at the Masters, but did and does play well at the PGA. Same thing for DeChambeau. He has a couple of top 5s historically at the PGA Championship. And one other guy in the 9s, I know you asked for 2, but this guy goes against everything that I was talking about, Cam Smith. He is just so good around the green and on the green. I mean, it's not the easiest way to win a golf tournament, but he was 10th top 10 last year at Oak Hill, and top 10 in the U.S. Open. So we would normally think he's better at a Masters or an Open Championship, but he is just so good from 100 yards and in that I don't think you can dismiss him. And he's sub 10,000, and you can maybe fit 2 or somehow 3 of those guys into one lineup.
You know what? For my 2 core guys, the ones that kind of catch my attention the most from a scoring capability point of view, and also just from their ability, how their course fit, it's almost a blend from what all 3 of you guys said. The first guy I'm going to go with Bryson DeChambeau. I mean, if we're here and you need a Louisville slugger, who else are you going to take, right? I mean, he's longer than Rory, and it's going to be a huge advantage. I think about the wet, soft conditions, and it takes me right back to Winged Foot in 2020. And what he did to that golf course and winning the U.S. Open by 5, he could very likely do that again this week. You want comp courses. How about Muirfield Village Golf Club? Well, he won there in 2018. You know, for me, Bryson DeChambeau makes all the sense in the world. And, you know, we'll all say he's not the most cerebral golfer, right? For lack of a better term. But when that guy can finish 6th at Augusta and not, you know, trip over his own 2 feet and knock himself out of the competition, I think that has to give everyone pause. I think that there's a little bit of maturity going on there. There's no longer like 7 pounds of bacon that he's eating and trying to hit it 4,000 yards. Like, I think he's really comfortable with where he's at, and he hasn't lost much distance. The distance is going to be such a factor. It's so wet when I'm walking around out there. It just got wetter this morning. So I think it's really tough to walk away from him at 9,600 because I think he could win the whole thing. And then the other one is I'm going to go down in the 7s because I think that there are some great values down in the 7s. And at $7,500, Sepp Straka, for me, is just, I mean, he's the king of Zoysia right? I mean, the TPC Southwind, he lost to Zalatoris in a playoff. He's great at Eastlake, right? The reason being is that he's such a good straight flusher of the golf ball. We saw it last week at Quail Hollow. What do you need? Power off the tee and accuracy? You need long iron acumen? I mean, the guy has both, and he has a lot of touch around the greens, which a lot of those guys don't have, and Len mentioned that earlier. So, you know, you want another comp course? How about the fact that he's won in a Nicklaus design at PGA National, right? So, like, he left to right off the tee, a lot of bunkers. You know, I mean, like, all of these trends that the Golden Bear can't get away from when he designs a golf course, right? Sepp's already proven that he knows how to compete on them. And you go back last year at the Open, he was what, 2nd, 16th at the Masters, 8th at Quail last week. What was he, 5th, I think, at RBC Heritage? He's been playing good in signature events against elite fields. So I think he's a pretty strong play. Let's shift gears for a second to the betting board, right? My world over here at Read the Line. I'm going to start with you, Ryan Andrade, right? Who do you, let's have some fun with this. Who are you betting to win? And then give me your best placement pick of the week.
Yeah, you know, everybody sort of talked about him a little bit, so I sort of feel a little bit better about it, and it's definitely off-brand for me to pick somebody like this to win, but Bryson DeChambeau plus 2,800, I think, you know, he's going to be able to fly a lot of the trouble this week, which I think will be a big advantage. The carry distance is huge here. You know, he actually drove the ball really well at the Masters too. So he's clearly sort of got that, whatever that new sort of driver that he put in the bag that's a little bit shorter, he sort of figured that out. You know, that Masters T6, he had 4 straight top 10s on Live before that, finished T4 at Oak Hill last year. I think the other thing is that, you know, he had that great showing at Augusta, and that was without his magic sauce, his book, whatever's going on in that book. And he's going to have it this week. So he'll be able to cook up some things. And yeah, I think with all the talk on those big 3 guys, I think he can kind of sneak in right behind. And obviously this is a perfect sort of fit for him. So that would be my pick to win.
I love it.
As far as placement, you know, I was looking at this a little bit, and Zalatoris, I mean, he's plus 550 for a top 10, and like all this guy does is get top 10s at majors. You know, he's been a little hot and cold this year, but I think, you know, he's T2 at Riv, T4 at Bay Hill, T9 at Augusta, so clearly you can still get it done at the big boy courses. He's still great on approach. Obviously, that's going to play well this week, and he's plus 7,500 to win this week even. So I mean, there's just a lot of value all over that for a guy that's proven that on the biggest stages that he can go get it done.
He definitely can. And there's another guy that can get it done. That's Len Hochberg. Who gets it done for you, Len Hochberg, huh? Who are you betting to win? And give us your best placement bet.
Yeah, I hate to say this, but I was on him. I liked him at the Masters. I mean, we all like Patrick Reed at the Masters, but the guy plays well all the time. I mean, he's finished top 25 in half of his career majors. I mean, really good. Even on these longer tracks, he just seems to get there. So I'm not picking him to win this week. I'm just looking here at the DraftKings book here, and he's plus 400 for a top 20 now. I mean, he would do that just to piss all of us off. That would be his goal, not to get the check or to move up in the world rankings or anything, just to get everybody pissed off that he had a good week. So I always like him in these situations. He's just a big game guy. Whatever we want to say about Patrick Reed, he's a big game guy. We saw it in the Ryder Cup. We see it in the majors. So he's there. You want my pick to win? Are we at the end? We were at the end of the show. We're wrapping this up, everybody. Let's go. What do we?
Well, Ryan Poole still has his say, and so do I. But this is the time, Len. You can't delay any longer. You have to make a decision.
I've already put it in. I've already put it in print in a couple of places, so I can't go against Scottie Scheffler. Scottie Scheffler. Even not only is he the best golfer, but he might prove to be the best new dad and be able to figure out how to get sleep and practice, do well at his job, and not all of that. So I wouldn't put that past him. So I did say Scottie Scheffler, but there was a lot of convincing arguments just in the last couple of minutes for DeChambeau, especially with the wetter course. And as you mentioned, as long as he doesn't outthink himself and try and hit one groove lower to get 4 feet closer or whatever he tries to do when he does what he does, just get the ball there. Just your natural talent alone is better than 99.9%. So DeChambeau looks great, but I have to say Scheffler because I can't be going different places, different names, different places.
Well, I love that Reed pick. I mean, in his last 4 PGA championships, just this major championship, he has 3 top 20s, and his worst finish is 34th. And these are not golf courses that fit Patrick Reed. Right. These are long, big boy. Well, he's a little round, but these are long, big boy golf courses. These are your amphitheaters where we expect the Brysons and the Scotties and the Rorys to kind of be the ones at the top of the list. Now, speaking of top of the list, we got to go to Ryan Poole. Who's at the top of your list? And give us the best bet on the placement board.
So I'll start with my placement pick, and that's Dean Burmester. He's plus 850 for a top 10. We've talked about, you got to be long here. Dean Burmester is one of the longest guys in the world. He can bomb it a long way. He won Live Miami in April. He followed it up with a third place finish in Australia. So I think Burmester's under the radar. And then my pick to win is, how have we not talked about him during this whole podcast? Ludwig Ober. Yeah, he withdrew last week with a knee injury. I'm assuming it's just precautionary. I don't think it's a factor. This guy's got 5 top 10s in his last 8 starts. You want to talk about doing, guys that have all the shots in their bag. He can drive it long. He can drive it straight. He's hitting his irons really well, and the short game is better than people give him credit for. So at 20-1, I'm going to take Ober.
I mean, it's tough to argue against any of those picks. Of course, I'm right, but at the end of the day, I just can't get past Brooks Koepka as far as the winner goes. At plus 1,600, I mean, we have Xander Schauffele right there at plus 1,600. Brooks has 5 majors, and then we're talking about a guy who has 8 top 10s. Brooks is the defending champion. He tends to win his majors in pairs, right? He won 2 U.S. Opens in a row. He won 2 PGAs in a row. And he's coming from Oak Hill, which is a great comp here. And I think the agronomy plays a big role in all of this, especially because it's going to be so wet and it's going to be kind of unpredictable. I mean, you go back to Bellerive, where he won the PGA in 2018. It's the same grass, bent grass greens, zoysia grass fairways. How about we go over to Sentosa, where they played the Live Singapore event? I cover the LPGA from a betting perspective all the time. They have an event over there in Singapore. They play the same golf course. It's bent grass greens that he just won on and zoysia grass fairways. That was his last win 3 weeks ago. I just find it hard. I mean, I guess what it really comes down to is that when I look at the PGA Tour, everybody's had their chance this year to go get Scottie, and they've basically failed outside of Steven Yeager, right? Like Wyndham goes up there and he lost. Xander's lost. Rory's lost. Everyone has climbed to the top of the mountain, and there's still one king of the mountain. I love these live guys coming in. I love the Bryson pick. I love the unknown of Rahm, and I love Brooks defending his title because these guys aren't going against Scottie every week. And in a vacuum right now, if they step up out of those 3 guys from live, Brooks is really, he's the toughest one. And I think he could look down Scottie on Sunday. He might be one of the few guys in the field because we got to look at this like who can beat Scheffler, right? And we've mentioned some names, but if they got paired with him on Sunday, who's least likely to kind of shudder, and who's least likely to fold their tent, right? I think Brooks is the guy for that. So he's my pick to win. As far as a pick that I love on the betting board, my best bet for a placement. How about what Denny McCarthy's been up to lately? 6th place last week at Quail Hollow. And again, we'll go back to the comp, the Nicholas comp of Muirfield Village Golf Club. Everyone's talking about Bryson winning there in 2018. Great comp, right? People like Patrick Cantley this week because he's won there twice. There's all sorts of mentions. But in the last 2 years, Denny McCarthy's finished 5th and 2nd there. So I'm going to take him for a top 20. You can get him at plus 350. And the run that he's been on lately, I know the end of the Valero didn't go his way, but he finished 2nd, right? So this guy plays well on really difficult golf courses because he's one of the number 1 scramblers on the PGA Tour. So I've got Brooks to win at plus 1,600, and I've got a top 20 with Denny McCarthy at plus 350. Now to wrap the show, right? I know who you guys think is going to win, but, let's just say, who's going to win and the winning score. I'm interested to see because a lot of people love to bet the market of what the winning score may be and over under. So as experts, break it down for me. And I'm going to go back to you first this time, Ryan Poole. Who you've got to win and the winning score come Sunday?
Yeah, I think it's going to stay in single digits. I'm going to take 9 under to be the winning score, and I'm going to go with over.
All right, Len Hochberg, how about you?
Scottie Scheffler. And I think it's going to be a little bit more than that. What was it? When Rory won in 2014, I know that was a lifetime ago. It was, 16 under something? I don't think we'll get there, but I'll say Scheffler at 14 under. All
right. Ryan Andrade, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going Brian Harman by 6 this week. Not again. But honestly, this is the type of week that, short hitters do nothing and Brian Harman would go up there and win or something like that. But no, I'm sticking with Bryson. I like 13 under par. I think there'll be some good scoring chances, especially if you're hitting it to where like some of these long guys are. Yeah, I like 13 under.
Guys, those are some serious thoroughbreds. That's for sure. But, for me, the guy who's going to win the race, the run for the roses is going to be Brooks Koepka. He's going to be 11 under par. He's going to get just past it, just into double digits. That's what it looks like as I walk around here. I was at Oak Hill last year. Oak Hill looked a little bit tougher. But this is definitely going to be an entertaining test this week. So as we wrap up the rundown for the 106th PGA Championship, one quick final thought for the fans at home. Ryan Poole, I'll go with you first.
Are we talking about like a player in general here, Keith, or
something you're looking for? Will there be a playoff, a long shot, something fun just to wrap things up today?
Got it. I'm curious to see how Jordan Spieth plays this week. It's kind of like Rory, where we're constantly talking about like when will Rory, win the Masters? When will Jordan Spieth complete the career Grand Slam? Maybe the answer is never to both of them, but I'm curious to see how Spieth plays. He's actually been driving the ball really well, but surprisingly, the irons have dipped quite a bit, especially the last couple of weeks. He's losing almost a stroke per round on approach. The short game's been kind of inconsistent, But if he can continue to drive the ball well, Spieth is a great guy to have in contention come the weekend, and I'm rooting for him. I would love to see it.
All right, Ryan Andrade, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we haven't even talked about Tiger yet, really. And I feel like, you can't do a podcast where Tiger's in the field where you don't really talk about him. So, yeah, I mean, listen, I think, there's some concern. We might see some stoppage, especially Friday, it looks like was kind of the worst of the weather. So we'll see what that looks like. We'll see. Also, I'm curious to see like who he's paired with, some of the other big pairings out there. Yeah, I mean, you just listen, like you just want to see Tiger make it 4 rounds, right? And be able to walk around the course without looking like it's pulling teeth. So I'm hoping we get at least a good performance. I don't, this is other than the Masters and maybe the Open if he's feeling good enough. Like I don't really see him contending in the PGA or US Opens anymore. Pinehurst may be a different story because you don't really have that long rough, but the rough this week, if it's wet, it could be nasty. So we'll just have to wait and see what Tiger can surprise us with.
Well, I can tell you for sure, it's not could be nasty. It is nasty. I've seen it, and you can lose a shoe in there. That's for sure. Len Hochberg, one more thought.
Yeah, we always root for the story. Writers always root for the best story, or a lot of the writers root for the story. I mean, Scottie Scheffler winning would be an amazing story. It would just separate him from everybody else even more than he's already separated. And we'd be in full Grand Slam mode, which would be incredible. Brooks Koepka, if he won his 6th, I mean, that is rarefied air. That's top 12, tied for top 12 all time. And you are really cementing your legacy. But I think the biggest story of them all, of all the big stories, would be if Rory McIlroy could somehow win this and win his 5th and pull on par with Brooks. And after 10 years, I mean, he is still maybe the most popular guy in golf, non-Tiger Woods division. It would just be exponentially amazing from a story point if Rory McIlroy could win. But the pressure may be so great, he may realize that. That's why it might be so hard. But yeah.
I love all those final thoughts. And one last one for me. Thanks to everyone for tuning in for a special edition of the RotoWire Rundown. 106th PGA Championship is coming in just a couple of days. So we hope that you found all this information useful for filling out your weekend wagers. DFS, betting, or otherwise, a friendly pool, a neighborhood bet, anything that you might do. Just come see us every week, 11:15 a.m. Eastern Time, 8:15 Pacific Time. The RotoWire Rundown. Myself, Keith Stewart from Read the Line. It's been a pleasure to be with you all. Thanks for being here.